Welcome back to our 32 teams for 32 days, 32 for 32 NFL preview series. This is the Goal Line Stand, a Section 247 presentation presented, as always, by Michael's Glass Company. We are a Sports Talk Philly partner. Follow us up on the upper right there at GL Stand Show for all of our fun stuff. I am Mike, that's Brett, and we are talking the Jacksonville Jaguars today. I am very excited to discuss the Jacksonville Jaguars, stadium stampede, all that kind of stuff, right?
Absolutely. Don't we have to chant Duval or something?
I think it is Duval. It is Duval.
What is it, Duval County?
Duval County.
Yeah.
Duval County. The most that they have going for them, no offense, Jaguar fans, but you have wrestling attached to your stadium right now, so that's good.
And a pool.
And a pool.
Yeah.
And a pool. Let's get into it. I mean, some of these are going to be a little bit harder than others as far as what's going on. So we got the Jacksonville Jaguars of 2019, a 6-10 record, fourth place. That is last in the AFC South. Let's get into it. Acquisitions, opt-outs, and departures.
Yeah, look, I think that even though it looks like they were more active in terms of their acquisitions, I think that they let go of some key pieces, though. If you really think about it, this is a team in transition, a team that's building, even though they somehow, beyond my comprehension, kept their coach. When they got rid of Coughlin, I thought they'd also get rid of Doug Marrone. They kept him, whatever. So they got rid of some veteran pricey pieces, such as Calais Campbell, Marcel Darius, AJ Boye, and obviously for Eagle fans, you see Big Nick there. And, in terms of acquisitions, Tyler Eifert's expected to start, but when was the last time Tyler Eifert was healthy? Yeah, I would love to have a healthy Tyler Eifert. It just doesn't really happen. Aaron Lynch is a good rotational player. Cassius Marsh, decent linebacker. Rashawn Melvin, he's decent. I think that, the real key is here. A lot of these guys just sort of, they aren't quite at the same level. And Rashawn Melvin and Al Woods, as you can see, both opted out. Al Woods was expected to be an integral part of the defensive tackle rotation. So that definitely hurts them. This is a young team that's trying to find their way and trying to build and trying to find any success to really build on. But I think that most people would argue it's one of the least talented teams in the league. But, there's some intriguing names here and there, some intriguing storylines. So other than Al Woods and Rashawn Melvin are the two out of those three opt-outs that I think would hurt them, or that will hurt them the most in terms of not being present on the team.
The Jacksonville Jaguars were plays away from going to the Super Bowl a few years ago.
Yeah.
And now here they are. 6-10, fourth place. Really not a good team, playing games overseas because they can't play games at home.
Yeah.
What happened here over the past 3 years to bring us to this point?
Well, I hate to say it as a Giant fan, because to me he's sort of like a grandfather to me and to most Giant fans, but Tom Coughlin just did not do a very good job running this team. Obviously, there was a lot of issues. A lot of people were unhappy. It sort of grew a culture of me first as opposed to team, which is something that he stressed as a coach with the Giants and previously before that with the Jaguars. It just grew thin really quickly. And there were injuries and guys just didn't step up or develop the way they thought. And at some point they had, they started spending all this money on all those defensive stars and they got rid of them. So because of that, there was a fall from grace because look, they should have beat the Patriots and they were the team that really should have played the Eagles that year in the Super Bowl.
Correct.
Which is pretty remarkable.
Let's get to the draft, which they had a lot of picks.
Yeah, no, look.
A couple of their picks I actually like early on here. Clavon Chazon, I like him as a DN. That was someone that was on my radar. CJ Henderson, obviously. But get into it here, and let's dissect this a little bit.
Yeah, I wouldn't call it a terrible draft. I don't think they look. We always say, oh, they won the look. We talked about the Denver Broncos, a few days ago, and I was very high on that draft. It may ultimately, several years from now, turn out to be the worst draft in the league. Having said that, I think the Jaguars draft is decent. You talked about their 2 first-round picks. They addressed areas of need on the defense. CJ Henderson was the clear-cut number 2 prospect at the cornerback position. K'Lavon Chaisson is going to be able to step in for whenever Yannick Ngakoue leaves this team, which may still very well be during this preseason, even though there's no technical preseason games, the NFL's preseason via trade or at the end of the season when he leaves the team via free agency, and they're going to be able to pick up a compensatory pick. So he'll step in right away. Laviska Shenault is a guy I'm really high on. He couldn't really shake the injury bug at Colorado, but if he could stay healthy, he was as talented as any of the first-round wide receivers. Davon Hamilton, one of the reasons he slipped to the 3rd round is because so often Ohio State found on defense, they found themselves in 3rd and long. So he'd come out of the game and they would have all their talented DNs go and chase the quarterback. But he's a lot of talent too. Ben Bartch is a Division III All-American who I think actually has a really good chance of sticking around the league, similar to Ali Marpet, who was drafted several years ago by the Buccaneers. Remember him, Mike? From Hobart. He's he's the starter in Tampa. So similar kind of talent.
And you're talking St. John's, Minnesota. That's not exactly it's not like it's Kane University or anything like that. It's a really, really good Division III program that is really well known. A lot of guys that probably shouldn't be playing there are playing there. And that's not to take away from him, but let's put it in perspective there a little bit.
Yeah, no. Actually, I was going to say, I think St. John's has been. I think teams in their conference have gone to the NCAA requesting that they bump up to either D2 or Division I FCS because of how good they are. I think I read that story, that may have been Mount Union, but I thought it was St. John's, Minnesota.
You know what? I think it is St. John's in Minnesota.
Yeah.
But there was somebody that got asked to move up, and I don't know if it was St. John's or not. I can't quite remember. We'll get to that at another time.
Yeah, and either way, as you pointed out, it's one of the most successful Division III programs in Division III program history. When you're playing there, you're essentially playing at a 1AA level, so people shouldn't just poo-poo them or poo-poo Ben Bartch because he came from a D3 school. I think one of the other themes for some of the late round picks were they got a lot of guys who had a lot of production. So you got guys who are good football players who managed to find the field as underclassmen and stayed very active throughout their college careers. One name that stands out there, Shaq Quarterman. He probably the best Miami linebacker since sort of their heyday. So, from several years back. The reason he fell to the 4th as compared to some of those other linebackers that came out of out of Miami, he's a little bit more limited athletically, but he's a really good football player, a good leader, always in the right spot. Same thing with Daniel Thomas, the safety out of Auburn. The quarterback, Jake Luton, it's sort of an interesting prospect. 6'6", has a rocket arm. He sort of jumped all over the place. Oregon State wasn't really that successful. And then the last pick actually was really interesting. Supposedly, this kid, Chris Claybrooks, who I don't believe was invited to the combine, ran a sub-4 340, and he's a good kick returner. So, look, that's the perfect kind of 7th-round pick. You take a flyer on someone who might have extreme and rare athleticism, and you see what you can do with them. So, again, I'm okay with this draft. I think that they're getting athletes, they're getting good football players, people who have proven themselves on the football field with production. You're building. It's Rome wasn't built in one day.
No, Rome was not built in one day. Let's get to the 4 key questions for the Jacksonville Jaguars. Question numero uno: Minshew-a-Mania running wild? That is a question.
Yeah.
What do we make out of Gardner Minshew? Is this guy the real deal? Is he? What is he?
So I think Gardner Minshew is a legitimate average starting quarterback in the NFL. To his credit, even though drafted in the 6th round, even though slightly smaller, doesn't necessarily have the strongest arm. He's a good innovator. He works the pocket well, sees the field well. He can win you games. I don't think he is a guy who could take you to the next level. But so as a 6th round pick, that's a good find. Is he's good enough to obviously start this year for them? But let's just say hypothetically that this team, finishes with one of the worst records in the league. I don't. Well, then obviously he didn't do enough to win games,
Right.
and I think that's where I think he's good. And again, he's good enough to be an average starter in the NFL, but I don't think you could win a Super Bowl with just an average starter.
No, you can't. And let's go move into it. Are there any skill players that require the attention from the opposing defense? They don't have many weapons.
That's the other problem. So, I mean, how can you really evaluate Gardner Minshew when they don't have a ton of weapons? And also, it's not like he has, the Dallas Cowboy, Philadelphia Eagles, or Las Vegas Raider offensive line blocking for him. This is definitely not the most talented of offensive lines. You look at the receivers. DJ Chark is decent. D.D. Westbrook, decent. We have Keelan Cole. You have James Shaughnessy at tight end. I guess the best skill position player would be Leonard Fournette. But again, a guy who
Can't stay healthy.
Exactly. I was going to say his one consistency is that he's not healthy. And there's also issues there in terms of locker room stuff. He doesn't, you don't know whether or not he's even happy to be there. They already voided all his guarantee money because of that one ejection he had a few years ago. So he's a question mark too. And even at his best, I still could name at least 5 running backs better than him, probably, maybe even 10. So that's your best weapon. That's the problem.
Yeah, it is. And it doesn't help when your defense is so. We discussed the 17 team. How different is this current defense from that 17 defense?
Yeah, it's very different. It lacks the pass rush is still decent. I mean, they have Yannick Ngakoue. They have Josh Allen, who was an excellent pick that they had last year out of Kentucky from Montclair, New Jersey. Rutgers never offered him. I think that was a Kyle Flood decision. But the secondary is nowhere near as talented as they once were. Linebackers are limited. And you just don't have that same leadership. Like Calais Campbell was at the height of his game in 2017, and he's a guy who I think it didn't the lights didn't come on right away for him. Had they come on his first few years the way he's playing now, he probably would be like a borderline Hall of Famer. But because there was a few years there,
that's pretty bold.
No,
I mean,
yeah, because
from a Pro Football Reference standpoint, he's comparable to Mike Mamula for Eagles fans. So, I mean, that's pretty.
Well, no, I'm talking about Calais Campbell, not Yannick Ngakoue.
Both of them.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I again, and I think that's because he sort of came on slow, but once he, hit his stride, he started playing at an All-Pro level. Mike Mamula was never at an All-Pro level. So
let's move on to question number 4. 2 words for you. Trevor Lawrence.
Yeah, I just don't see this team cobbling together 5 to 6 wins unless everyone else in their division comes down with COVID hard, God forbid, and then they're just standing there as the most talented team. And if so, I think they are easily going to have their option of Trevor Lawrence, maybe Justin Fields, Trey Lance, the quarterback from North Dakota State, who a lot of people actually rank ahead of Justin Fields. So I think they're going to have a real decision to make. Plus, if you're in that position, though, I think, as we just said, that means Gardner Minshew is just not the answer. It's look, they swung big with Blake Bortles. It didn't work out.
They don't hit on quarterbacks. They
Yeah.
really don't. Since Mark Brunell.
Yeah. And look, I really admire Nick Foles. I think Nick Foles can succeed in certain offenses, but he got hit, he got hurt.
He's a bad quarterback.
I think he's a marginal. I think he's an average starting quarterback on the same level. He's a different player than Gardner Minshew.
There's a handful
of the same level.
There's a handful of places that Nick Foles could play. Off the top of my head, Philadelphia, Indianapolis, Kansas City.
Yeah, well, those are the three that make the most sense. Yeah,
right. So, I mean, Jacksonville fans shouldn't be disappointed. I mean, I'm sure they thought they were getting the Super Bowl MVP, which he was, but it's not like you were getting Joe Montana. So
exactly, you have to understand that he is limited, and it's more situational. And the Jaguars just did not have that. I think they thought that Nick Foles would come in there and make the other people around him better. When you think about it, to his credit, Nick Foles came in with the Eagles, and you had a tremendous offensive line, solid weapons, really great coaching staff. They made him better, and he rose to the occasion, which just didn't happen in Jacksonville. That's why you had Gardner Minshew.
Exactly. We will get to our regular season prediction of the Jacksonville Jaguars at the end of our 32 for 32 NFL preview series, when we have the big show that we that diagnose, look at the whole NFL season as a whole, preview everything. If you are enjoying this here program, be sure to subscribe on YouTube and tell a friend. Go up to our Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Like us on Facebook. Follow on Instagram and Twitter at GL Stan Show. Tomorrow, the 32 for 32 continues with the aforementioned Indianapolis Colts and the Fighting Frank Reichs. Until then, I'm Mike. This is Brett. We will see you down the road. Be safe.